Following, we're going to our next guest. We have Gabriela Escobar Sánchez from the Leibniz Institute for Baltic Research in Warnemünde, Germany. Gabriela will discuss whether tourism ecolabels effectively help reduce beach litter in touristic sites, highlighting their potential impact and challenges in promoting sustainable tourism and reducing marine and beach litter pollution. Gabriela, your turn, and indeed a very important thing that to address, and I hope you can explain it how we can do it more effectively.
Thank you very much. I think I have the headset. Can you hear me well? Yes. Okay, great. Sorry. Yes, so I'm also a little bit of an outsider here. I'm also a researcher, and I'm happy to be here actually to learn from your practice experience, from reality, let's call it. And I would like to share with you also what we are working with our project Tumali, to see whether we can help and whether ecolabels can be also a solution to reduce marine litter in North African countries. So first of all, how many of you know about marine litter? Okay, yeah, that's a good amount. So marine litter, I think, has been widely promoted in the media and documentaries nowadays, so you guys talked about it just now as well. But it's identified or is defined as any persistent solid material that was disposed or abandoned in the coastal and marine environment. And from research, we know as well that the Mediterranean Sea is one of the most polluted seas. This because it's an enclosed sea, so there is not as much water exchange. And at the same time, because there is a lot of industrial human activities, and there is a high population density. And as you may know, marine litter is a big problem for the marine and coastal fauna, for environmental and coastal environments, for habitats. But we also need to recognize that it is a very a big threat also to local economies, including tourism. If we think that, for example, coastal tourism alone for Europe accounts for 44% of the gross value added and 63% of the employment, then we are talking about a big industry here that we also need to protect. So, in fact, beach and sea pollution is a threat also to the tourism economy. Now, what we are doing in Tumali stands for Tourism Marine Litter, and we look for solutions to prevent marine litter in the tourism sector. And for this, we needed to firstly establish monitoring campaigns. These monitoring campaigns were non-existent in the country, so our team from the Leibniz Institute for Baltic Sea Research, we traveled to each of the countries that collaborate with us. These are Morocco, Tunisia, and Egypt. And we carried out a monitoring campaign, and then the partners located there carried out following ones. And what I'm going to show here are the main results. What we found was that from these monitoring campaigns, the top 10 litter items most found at the beaches were plastics, which is not surprising. I think we all know that plastics are kind of a big problem. But when we look into the detail of what type of top litter items are mostly found in these beaches in North Africa, we find that plastic pieces, cigarette butts, sweet wrappers, plastic bottle caps, small plastic bags, and polystyrene are the most found items. And these are single-use plastics. Now, when we want to look into solutions, we need to think where do these items come from. And we do something or a technique called Tudor matrix scoring. This will take each of these top litter items, and together with experts, we look into what is the likelihood that a potential source was the emitting source for this item. And what we found, we divided this into 4 different sources: tourism and beach users, land and industry, shipping and commercial fishing. And what we found is that tourism and beach use was the main polluting source. So here we find a very contradicting and vicious cycle. Not only marine litter affects the local tourism economy, but also tourism is the main source for marine litter. So we need to definitely stop this, otherwise they will keep fighting with each other. Also, we need to consider that this is highly important not only for the environment, as I said, but for the economy. Studies have suggested that a destination can lose up to 40% from their annual income just because they have to regularly clean. And you could also gain a lot of money by eliminating litter. So it is definitely a benefit. However, in North Africa, the infrastructure is lacking, the resources are lacking, the legal infrastructure is also not fully there. So what we are thinking is, how can we involve stakeholders and motivate them into developing solutions? And one of the ideas was perhaps ecolabels. Now you know about tourism ecolabels. I think I'm not going to go into depth about that, but what you know also is that tourism ecolabels target different types of tourism sectors. So for us, we really want to focus on the ecolabels that work on beaches, work on destinations, because in that way we can assess what type of solutions are best. And when we look into what ecolabels are most suitable, we need to also look into ecolabels that are trustworthy, that are transparent. This is all under the umbrella of the GSTC. So when we look into that, then we know that ecolabel can be a good one. However, what the main challenge for this is that there is a wide market of ecolabels currently, and all of them use different standards, different criteria, and this leads to the clients or the destinations being confused about what to choose and what to do with that information. So our research questions are two. Can tourism ecolabels help to effectively reduce marine litter? And second, which ecolabels are most effective in this region? We follow 4 different steps. I'm going to go into detail one by one in the results. So firstly, we compiled all available tourism ecolabels globally, and we found that by September last year, there were 139 actively operating. These ones, we looked into where do they target, and about half of them target national countries. So there are national labels that are only possible to be applicable there. And when we look into continent-wise, we saw that there is a very even distribution by continent, with a bit more in Europe. Then we look into what ecolabel was most suitable for the North African region, and we found that 42 ecolabels were applicable in the North African area. However, only 23 of them disclose their criteria transparently, and we need that in order to actually analyze what ecolabel is most effective. So we focused our research only on these 23 ecolabels. And the criteria that we were looking for was what criteria focuses on waste management, what criteria focuses on marine litter reduction. And this could have been criteria related to elimination of single-use plastics, or recycling facilities, or cleaning beach, or provision of toilets, and so on. Then, when we looked into also suitability, we looked into what tourism sector these ecolabels were targeting. And we found that 22% of them target accommodations, and 52% target other areas that for us are not so relevant in terms of beach litter. So conference centers, tour operators, and so on are not really relevant for us. So based on that information, we also gave a relative importance for each of the sectors that I will show after. Here you see, for example, the relative importance that we associated. So for ecolabels that were focusing on beaches, we gave a relative importance of ×4. Ecolabels that were focusing on marinas, tourism, boats, and destinations, ×3. Ecolabels focusing on accommodation and restaurants, ×2, and all others were just ×1 importance. Then what we did was multi-criteria analysis. For this, we collected all of the measures that are mostly suggested by, for example, the Global Tourism Association, by the United Nations Environmental Program, by WWF, Greenpeace, and so on, SDGs as well, and we categorized them into different groups. And we looked into what ecolabels cover what measures. So by that way, we will find the extent of conformance of each ecolabel fulfilling how many measures. So the last step that we weren't able to fulfill, that here I'm hoping for your input at the end of the presentation, is discussing the implementation and the effectiveness of ecolabels in practice, because I think this is one of the main aspects. There are certain limitations, and I would like to know from your perspective what these are and how would you see effort and effectiveness in that sense. But what I'm going to show now are the preliminary results based on the 3 other steps for the area of North Africa. And we found that the ecolabels with highest extent of conformance, and in this sense highest potential to reduce litter, were Blue Flag, ISO, Stoke, and EarthCheck. So each of these ecolabels covered a different range of the measures. So Blue Flag covered between 63 and 88% of the measures that were suggested by these renowned institutions. ISO 76%, Stoke 57% of the measures, and EarthCheck 54%. Now, as I said, this is for North Africa region. So if you would like to know how this looks for your location, it will very likely vary because it's based on geographical context. However, what's important here is that each of the ecolabels, or the reason why these ecolabels were probably having a higher extent of conformance was because all of them include beaches, and I think this is one of the main aspects. And second of all, what we see here is there is a change, or there is a difference between what ecolabels have a global recognition and what ecolabels have a different type of validity, which is also something that for you as tourism managers is very important. So, answering the first question, can tourism ecolabels be a tool to reduce marine litter? Yes, but I will say with limitations. These limitations are costs. Each of the ecolabels have different prices. Long-term implementation, because in order to have an ecolabel long-term, you need to regularly either clean the beach or long-term reduce the amount of input of waste into the beach. The validity, this relates to the previous point. And type of label certification, because you also want to have a label that is globally recognized. Now, in terms of the second point, which ecolabel is most effective? I think the previous results are a good idea, but there is a lot of points that we still need to assess. First, the effects and the number of variety of tourism sectors that are covered by the ecolabel, the relative importance of the measures in regards to the top litter items that I presented in the beginning, and the effectiveness and effort of the implementation based on your view. So this is where the discussion with you is very, very important. And I would like to give you a minute to scan this QR code. So this gives you an access to our survey. It's a 5-minute survey. It's really, really fast. But it will give us an insight on what are your experiences with ecolabel implementation, what are the main challenges you see, the main benefits you see, and in that way we can complete our study as well. If you want to also share it with your friends, everybody, the more answers, the better. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.